You found the Backup Wrap-Up, your go-to podcast for all things backup, recovery, and cyber recovery. We got some feedback from somebody from our last episode, the 10 things that every backup system needs. He pointed out that we missed a few critical security features. So Prasanna and I are taking a deeper dive into what makes an immutable backup system. If you're concerned about ransomware, and I hope you are, then these security measures are now mandatory. Let's talk about how to actually protect your backup infrastructure from the biggest threat you're probably facing. By the way, if you don't know who I am, I'm W. Curtis Preston, aka Mr. Backup. I've been passionate about backup and cyber recovery for over 30 years, ever since I had to tell my boss that there were no backups of that database that we had just lost. I don't want that to happen to you, and that's why I do this. On this podcast, we turn unappreciated admins into cyber recovery heroes. This is the Backup Wrap-Up. Welcome to the show. Hi, folks. Wanted to mention my new book, Learning Ransomware Response and Recovery, which is now available for pre-order at Amazon.com. I wrote it with my co-author, Dr. Mike Saylor, who's a Blue Team cyber defense expert. He really knows his stuff. There are dozens of books to tell you how not to get ransomware. Our book starts with the assumption you're probably going to get ransomware. So we tell you how to respond to it and how to recover from it. It's unlike anything else out there. We tell you what you need to do now to be able to respond when it happens. We covered defenses to reduce the blast radius, how to protect your backup system, incident response procedures, negotiation strategies, backup recovery techniques, and how to prevent it from happening again. The tech reviewers gave it overwhelmingly positive feedback, so I think it's going to be a big seller. Pre-order it now. Search for Learning Ransomware Response and Recovery, or just look for my name, W. Curtis Preston. Hope you like it. Hi, I'm W. Curtis Preston, aka Mr. Backup, and I have with me a guy who suddenly seems to be asking, when do I get my name on the cover of a book? Prasanna Malaiyandi. How's it going, Prasanna?
I'm good, Curtis. I noticed in the background there are a whole bunch of more books up there than normal.
Well, it's just, I think they were just covered up before.
No, you had another book that was there. What happened to it? You're missing one.
You know what? It's funny that you say that. I'm doing a video actually for O'Reilly Skills, which is kind of very exciting. My first time doing a video for them it's their learning platform. And oddly enough, we'll be talking about backup. But I was trying to make it look more aesthetically pleasing, and so I have the lovely picture of my wife, and that is our baby. If you can imagine this. Here's a picture for you. That is me.
Wow. So for folks who may not be aware, we have YouTube videos of this podcast. So in addition to listening to us on your favorite podcatcher, you can also watch our smiling faces. You can see Curtis's background. You could see the picture of what he looked like 30 years ago.
Yeah. That was our baby. And interesting, that was our first baby photo session with the baby. And she was screaming as we were heading into the thing. And we were like, she's hungry. So we fed her, and then she fell asleep. And she is out cold in that photo shoot. Anyway, that baby's now 31.
Oh, so check us out on YouTube. Backup Wrap-Up is the name of the channel. Subscribe, leave comments, all the rest.
Absolutely. And by the way, this episode and the next episode are based on feedback that we got from our last podcast, which was 10 things that every backup system needs to have. And, they felt that I had left off a few, and I disagree. These were like table stakes, right? So just a real quick thing. These are like, if you don't have these, you don't even talk to me. Don't even tell me you have a backup.
No, talk to you in case, so then they can learn what they should be doing.
Oh yeah. No, I'm saying you're not already doing this. Yeah. Okay. I see your point there. Okay. So here's a quick list of a recap of the last episode. So we talked about 3-2-1 rule, which is now the 3-2-1-1-0 rule. 3 copies of your data, 2 media types, 1 of them off-site, 1 of them immutable with 0 errors. We talked about automated backups, right? If you're having to do your backups manually, that is not really a backup system. We talk about recovery testing. If you haven't tested your backups by trying to recover, then you don't really have backups. Defined RTO and RPO, recovery time objective, recovery point objective. And then also, and we're going to dive a little deeper on this one, isolating your backup system from a security perspective, backing up your SaaS data, look at documentation and runbooks of your system, defined retention policies, monitoring and alerting, make sure that somebody is constantly looking at your backup system. And then finally, I listed endpoint device protection.
And with that, Curtis has now retired, and he is going to go become an auction person who does like the biddings.
So, you so funny. So, you know, when you think about the things that a modern backup system, and again, for those that haven't listened to us before, when I say backup, I mean that in the broadest possible sense, right? So some people see DR and backup as 2 different things. I do not. I just see them as 2 different ways in which the backup is used. Anything that is storing the data for the purposes of recovery is a backup, in my opinion. As long as it meets the definitions of the things that we talked about, right? If it meets the 3-2-1-1-0, for example, snapshots that are not copied somewhere don't meet the definition of backup, but snapshots that have been copied somewhere and are being monitored and are scheduled and all this stuff, I think they can meet they can meet a definition of backup, right? But if you look at, and we talked about this the last episode, the number one reason that we are restoring these days is not hardware failure, and it's not even like fat fingering. It's not I deleted a file or I corrupted a file, by hand. I would say that the number one reason people are restoring these days is ransomware. What do you think about that?
No, I agree. And there's so much monetary risk, right? Just from an organization. Like we've talked about companies that have gone like bust because they were not able to recover from a ransomware attack. In fact, I think, who was it? Jaguar Land Rover is currently still trying to recover from an attack. I think the Asahi Brewing Company is trying to recover from an attack. So these have been going on for months and months trying to recover. Yeah.
And that's pretty much the number one reason we're reaching for a backup tape or disk or whatever.
Tape.
I dated myself there. Most people are not using tape as their primary protection mechanism. So some of them may have tape as a secondary protection mechanism, especially I'd say if they're a smaller organization. The reason why I say that is when you start talking about petabytes and exabytes, for example, tape is feasible. It's just that getting that amount of data regularly copied to tape can be, is difficult, right? It's not that it can't be done. It's definitely more challenging. But if you actually, just to go back to my comment about the smaller company, I just saw an article that a new company whose name I wish, and I'll insert it here, a new company named simply, they're actually selling LTO 10 tape drives. They're USB-C made directly to plug into, let's say, a MacBook, right? Now, the tape drives are $12,000.
But losing valuable data, a lot more expensive.
Yeah. So if you have the money to do that, I'm just saying that the tape technology does continue to be. So let's talk about 4 more things that I think that you need to look into if you want to basically modernize your backup system from a security standpoint, okay? And the first one, and we touched on it already in the last episode, and I talked about segregating your backups, but I don't think we really dove deep on modernizing the authentication mechanism. Historically, how did you log into a backup system?
Username, password?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully you at least had a username and password.
Yes, hopefully you did have that. Well, actually, if we go back in the day, the software ran like in user space. You didn't have a separate authentication login, so you were only as good as whatever thing you were logging into.
Yeah.
And generally it ran as root. Good times. So at least in the last, like, say 15, 20 years, username and password was the way. What's the problem with that?
You have users trying to manage passwords independently. Passwords get stolen. Passwords don't get rotated. People will pick the easiest password to remember.
Yes, like backup password. But we put $signs for the S's. They'll never guess that. Yeah, you know what it is? It's a backup password, so we put password
backwards.
Yeah. They'll never guess that either. And so that's the problem, really. Is it your one stolen or guessed password away from having your entire backup system thwarted? When you listen to the stories that I tell back in the thing, the backup system is like the one system that is connected to everything.
Yeah.
Right. And which is why it needs to be more secure than anything else, right?
Yeah.
And so the idea that you could just log in to a backup system with a username and password with no additional authentication at this point is absolutely insanity, right? So there are two things that we can do to thwart that. The first thing that you should absolutely be doing is some sort of password management system, right? So that your password is on all of the different pieces of your backup infrastructure. Your password is unique, not just one password logged in everywhere, right? But then there are two things that we can do Are you doing a butt before you even get to the
before you get to the two things, since you talked about local passwords, you talked about password managers, a lot of enterprises, companies, it's organizations, they use Active Directory or other things like that. And so my question to you is, yes, we said typing in a username and password as the only way of authenticating is bad. You said using a password manager is better. My question before you talk about the two things is, where do you see things like Active Directory, Enter ID, or whatever they now call all these things? Right? I can never keep up with the name changes.
It's Enter ID. Which is a weird name, and I preferred Active Directory.
Yeah.
But anyway.
But where do you see that as part of this?
Yeah, great question. I think we covered this a little bit in the last episode, but I see it as another way to hack the backup system. So if you're going to use Active Directory, this should be in a separate domain. There shouldn't be a way to hack the Active Directory or interest system in the primary domain and then somehow use that as a way to get into the backup domain. So at a minimum, there should be a separate username and password, or perhaps if you really want a separate Enter ID system for the backup system, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just most people aren't going to go to that cost and management to do that. And it's difficult to do that without also connecting it to your primary environment. But I do think it should be separated as much as possible. So then we're logging in with a local username and password. But if that's all we're doing, then this is a problem, right? And there are two things that we can do. One is sort of now starting to be the old school way, but it's still probably the primary way. And what would that be?
Multi-factor authentication.
Yes, aka MFA, right? Some people call it 2FA, but it's really multi-factor authentication because there could be different ways. And why does MFA help here?
Because if someone knows your password, unless they have your other factor, they can't authenticate into your backup system.
Right.
So it's like something you know and something you have, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And most MFA systems, at least, good, better, best. Good, better. Yeah. Good, better.
Yeah.
So good is modern SMS authentication. We come back to that in a minute. Better is MFA. based on like an app or something, and then best would be token based, physical token based, right? Why do I say? Because you and I have had this conversation. Why do I say modern SMS authentication is at least good?
Because it's
difficult to say it, right?
Yeah. Well, the problem with modern SMS is it's better than nothing.
It's better than nothing.
But if you look at all of sort of the SIM swap attacks and other things that have happened, it's not bulletproof.
Yeah, it's not bulletproof at all, right? But the modern SMS, like it's a lot harder with current hardware. It's a lot harder to like steal someone's identity that way, unless they physically stole your phone and then you don't have a password, and So the SIM swap, I think, used to be. I by the way, if somebody knows better than me. And again, I'm not saying this is the way to do it. I'm just saying it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
And I am not putting email on this list at all.
Yeah.
Right? I'm saying please don't use email. SMS is still better than nothing, but you should aim for better than that.
Can I make a comment, though, even about SMS?
Feel free. Yeah.
So you were just mentioning, unless they steal your phone. So most systems these days allow, like on my iPhone, and I have a Mac, it allows me to receive my SMSs on my Mac. Yeah. And then in Safari, when I
authenticated into the Mac.
Yes. But then in Safari, it autofills that SMS based on receiving it in iMessage. So I'm saying if someone has access to your laptop, right?
Yeah.
That it is possible because it's linked, or if they, for some reason, have access to your Apple account, that even having iMessage or having an SMS it's still better than nothing, but barely, like itty bitty.
I still think it's way better than nothing. There are edge cases, and if someone's determined to hack you, this is definitely not the way to do it, right? So better, I would say, is some sort of OTP, one-time password generator. I like Authy. Google Authenticator is the most popular. The thing I like about Authy is that you can back up the configuration and easily move it to another device. If you, by the way, the problem with Google Authenticator is actually what happened to me not that long ago. I dropped my phone in the water and I didn't do the right things. And so the waterproof phone died, and I needed to move all my OTPs over to another device. And with Google Authenticator, you need to do that live. You can't
do it after the fact.
Move it, right? And so that's when that happened to me the last time. That's when I started looking at Authy. And so I like that, but I forgot, I don't do it often. And so I couldn't remember what Authy was asking for, right? It was like it used a weird phrase that I didn't understand what it was asking for. And then eventually I remembered, it's just the password for Authy that I stored in my password management system for the backup. Because if I didn't have that password, I would have been starting from scratch again. So that's better because you need both. You need the phone, and you need to be able to authenticate into the phone. Yeah. Right. By the way, Authy no longer runs on the laptop. I don't think Google Authenticator does either. I could be wrong there. But what was the third option? So we talked about SMS, good, but not really that good. OTP. Oh, by the way, that's funny. Look at that. Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw the thumbs up.
That's really funny. I didn't even know that was a feature. Anyway, so what's the third option that we could do?
Physical tokens.
Yeah, physical tokens. And companies that are truly concerned of network and security, this is what they do. Yeah. Right. And this is something like YubiKey. Yep. What's the big
RSA?
RSA. Yep. Right. These are one-time password generators, but they're physical. Also, by the way, there are commercial solutions like Semantic VIP, for example. My bank requires me to use Semantic VIP to be able to log into. So MFA is a better way to at least make it harder for people to get in. But what is the challenge with MFA?
The problem with MFA is, I don't know about you, Curtis, but every time you log into something, you get an MFA notification.
Yeah.
And over time, someone could mistakenly authorize a request, which we've seen. I think it was the Okta hack, where it was sort of MFA fatigue, which someone was like, okay, I keep getting these requests. Okay, I'm just going to accept it.
Yeah, which is why it's not foolproof, right?
Yeah.
Because it's
still a person.
Some people.
Who is the weakest link, Curtis?
So, you are the weakest link. Humans are always the weakest link in any security system. So the next thing, and which is really the I think going to become the standard as we move forward, is passkeys. And passkeys are, they're based on this concept called FIDO, which is Fast Identity Online.
It's an alliance, right?
It's an alliance, yeah. And so basically, a passkey system is referred to as being FIDO compliant. And the thing is that there is no known way to thwart a FIDO compliant authentication system yet. And so how is that? I'm just saying that is the claim that's being made.
So I think even for passkeys, I think there's the good better and best.
All right. Oh, so you're saying there are better ways to have passkeys?
Yes. As an example, passkeys, right? If people aren't aware of passkeys, right? Passkeys store a certificate on your device that then can be used from just that one website, right? So it's linked to that and to verify your identity, right? And ideally, it should only be linked to that one particular device. However, as you can imagine, that leads to awful user experience if in every single device I needed to log in. And so companies like Apple, what they do is they use iCloud Keychain to actually synchronize passkeys amongst your devices.
Yeah.
Right? Which sort of defeats some of the protection in order to provide a better user experience. So that's why I call that better versus the best approach for passkeys, which is it's always restricted to a particular device. So if someone, for instance, got your passkey off of your device, somehow exfiltrated it, they're not able to replay it and other things like that. That would be my only thing I would say.
Yeah, I think we should. I think we could get a passkey expert on here, and we could talk about these concerns. I think that I'm not concerned as much about that at the moment. I am my main concern, like you said, like usability as the thing. So I've been working forward with using my password manager to store passkeys, right? And it's my user experience. Interesting, is different. My password manager requires me to put in my one password, my global password for the password manager, every time I use a passkey, which is way less convenient than when I use it to put in a password.
Yep.
And it was more secure. It's also more annoying. But the point is that look into a passkey based system. That is definitely the way moving forward. Yeah. I think you state some valid concerns about that, and perhaps there's no perhaps. I'm sure that we could do an episode just on passkeys and on bad passkey implementations that we could do in the future. Okay. So speaking of TLAs, right? The next thing is we want to make sure, and I think you should do this everywhere, but you absolutely need to do it on your backup system, and that is to disable the ransomware deployment protocol.
Are you going to patent that? Copyright that phrase?
Yeah, I don't think I coined it. I think I borrowed it from somebody else, so I don't think I can do that. But yeah, so we're talking about RDP, which is actually the remote desktop protocol, which is the way a lot of people, and it's built into so many operating systems, right? And it's enabled by default. And it does allow for remote management, but it also absolutely allows for deploying ransomware.
Yep. Because someone can easily access. There's a bunch of flaws with RDP that may not always be patched. And once someone's in, they basically have full access to your system.
Yeah. And, and of course, some might say, well, how am I going to remotely access things? There are other ways to remotely access the system, which are much more secure, right? Yeah. I would look at some sort of SaaS-based system that has a completely different user, authentication, so that you can authenticate. Again, you use passkeys to authenticate to that system, which then has remote access to the system. I think that's the way to do it.
Well, I also think like using a Bastion host or VPN and only allow people inside the network to connect via RDP is also another way you could potentially do that.
No, I don't like that.
Sorry, if required. I'm not saying for the systems that actually require.
What's a Bastion host?
This is kind of like a jumping point that you can use to connect from external systems, very secure, and then from there you can get access to other things.
Yeah, I get it. My preference would be to put this very important, very scary backdoor in the hands of a company that this is what they do for a living, rather than a Bastion host that I create and manage and possibly miss.
Or even just like restricting it to VPN and never allowing RDP outside.
I just think you should turn off RDP. Period. I just think it's so dangerous that you should turn it off and then use something other than RDP as your way of managing remote hosts.
Sure. There's also other more secure ways to set up RDP, by the way, that most people don't use.
That is true. Yeah. So again, good, better, best. Good is, I'd say the basically VPN, in a Bastion host, right? The better, I think, would be a SaaS-based platform. Best, perhaps, maybe an actual hardware-based remote management system that is based on, hardware that you plug in. It's probably also more expensive and more difficult to manage, et cetera, right? Just like everything else in our good, better, best thing. So the next is a little thing that we like to call RBAC. What is that?
RBAC. Good old RBAC. This is role-based access control, right? So making sure that you are not giving it. It kind of goes hand in hand with your least privilege access.
Yes,
right?
Yes.
Making sure that
does that, yeah.
You're not assigning individual users, right? You're doing things more methodically based on groups, and you are giving them access only to what they need rather than everything at the company.
Yeah, the thing that you really need to understand is that the person that has all power in the backup system is literally the most powerful person in the company from a data destruction standpoint, right? Because they can overwrite everything in the data center. They can overwrite all the configuration in the backup system, and they can delete all the backups.
Yep.
Right? It is an incredibly powerful position that we often give to the most junior people.
With great power comes great responsibility.
Exactly. So it's just this is so role-based administration basically says we're going to give this role to this person. And so, for example, you could give somebody the ability to run the backups but not configure the backups.
Yeah.
Or they can configure the backups but not do restores, right? Or they can do backups but not restores but not backups, right? So each of those is a different level of trust. And if you can do division of powers, and you can, this obviously is only going to work in a large company. But what you could do, you could create a separate role just for restorers, and you could require 4 eyes authentication for that. What is that?
Yeah, 4 eyes is basically two eyes. So it's 2 people in order to be able to do some action that may be destructive or cause issues.
It's not like Curtis with glasses. It's not 4 eyes like that. It's two people authenticating for certain actions like destructive restores, changing the backup configuration, for example? Why would we want to protect changing the backup configuration?
Because a malicious actor or even a rogue admin can go and sort of be like, hey, all those Oracle servers or whatever else, let's just change the backup so it's only running 1 day a week and the retention is 1 copy.
Yeah, exactly.
Or 0.
Yeah, exactly. The final thing I'd like to suggest to potentially harden your backup system is to consider some type of service provider that this is their only role. So this could be a number of things, right? So one is this could be an MSSP, right? A managed security service provider, like our good friend Dr. Mike Saylor at Black Swan Security, and somebody who's going to actively make sure that your backup system is configured in the most secure way, all the way up to using a SaaS-based data protection so that basically you put the security of the backups in the hands of a company who this is what they do.
But make sure that they are a reliable, trusted company, not some random company off the side of the road. Yeah.
Yeah. Trust but verify. Absolutely. Right. And talk to them about what sort of penetration testing that they do and what, how they conform to, ask them if they have a passkey authentication, and if they stare at you blankly, then maybe you should look somewhere else. Right. Talk to them about a lot of things like immutability and, how, are you able to delete the backups, right? That whole thing we talked about in the last one. I stand by strongly. If you are able to delete the backups, then so can the bad guy, right? So that's not something you want to do. All right, well, that's a quick list of some additional things, in addition to the 10 things that we talked about before, some additional things that you could do to take specifically the security of the backup system up to the next level. So thanks, Prasanna. Thanks for having a chat.
Yeah, no, and thank you to the listeners who left their feedback. This is why we do things. So please, if you think that we should be talking more about a specific topic or other things, leave us a comment. We love to hear it, and we do respond.
Absolutely. And thank you very much. And thank you, we have a new person who seems to have discovered our channel and is commenting a lot. And whoever you are, you don't have your real name. You have like CX something, some acronym. And so I don't know who you actually are. I do appreciate your comments, even if you disagree with stuff that we say. What I will say to everybody is don't be pushing your company's particular product, right? Because I feel that I need to discuss that if you're going to make a claim about your company's product or the way your company does things. We try, as you can hopefully see, we try very much not to be pushing a particular product and more on the here's how to do things the right way. And hopefully your product is able to do things the right way, right? And very rarely, my opinion, the problem with your backup system is almost never software or hardware. It is almost always wetware, right? The human is the weakest link, as we mentioned earlier, in every security chain. And so while, yes, I'm sure some products have more interesting security features than others, there's no perfect backup system. And with a few exceptions, there's no really awful backup systems. So anyway, thanks for listening, folks. That is a wrap. The Backup Wrap-Up is written, recorded, and produced by me, W. Curtis Preston. If you need backup or DR consulting, content generation, or expert witness work, check out backupcentral.com. You can also find links for my O'Reilly books on the same website. Remember, this is an independent podcast, and any opinions that you hear are those of the speaker and not necessarily an employer. Thanks for listening.